Welcome back everyone, Stu42 here with another Minecraft video. Today, finally, I think I'm going to show you some of my nuclear reactor. So, we've previously been over the colours, the concrete, the stained glass, getting Tinker's glass automated, a bunch of other things. Today, I think I'll start showing you the actual reactor setup. So, it's probably going to be quite a long video, maybe broken up. I don't like my videos to go too long. So to start with, I think I'll just do a quick tour of the actual setup and what I was trying to achieve. There are still some bugs with one of the ways of using this that I haven't quite figured out. They also use a lot of lapis, which is why if we head out this way, you can see all those flowers. That's because I have started doing bees. I do see bees as a little bit cheaty, but when you want a lot of lapis, there's not really too many other ways of getting that done. So first of all, the enclosure that this is in, I've used reinforced glass, double thick all the way around. I've just made sure that there's 2 bits of glass in between the outside and the reactor all the way around. So I've got these sort of offset doorways to get in and out, and that just means if this thing does blow up, it shouldn't take out anything else. I did some testing, and yeah, a double thick does it. I've got 2 sides to this reactor, so you see the blue light up there and the red light up there. Now basically, blue means it's cool, red means it's hot. And the yellow light here means it's on. So I'm using rednet cable quite a bit. You'll see I've changed the colors in there, so you can do that with the Omni wrench thing in the Power Fist. You can change that color in there just by right clicking, or with the precision mallet, I think it is. So I'm using a few different colors. Red for that side, white is just the on-off signal to turn the reactor on and off. If we go in here, as you can see, it's running at the moment at 420 EU per tick. Now, this is not the final setup that I wanted to have. This gives me a nice 420 EU per tick with no extra cooling required, and I don't run out of parts. So the reactor basically never overheats with this setup. It's not super efficient. I will probably use up my uranium pretty quickly running this for too long. Although in saying that, I have been running it for a day or so, and I'll show you why in a second. So what I've got is I've got the blue side, there's an import and export, and then on the red side there's an import and export as well. Now at the moment this hot side never gets turned on because it's not going to overheat. The initial design I had, I think in one of my other videos I showed it running at 880 EU per tick, and that was using the LZH condensers. And my theory was basically when the condensers run out, the reactor overheats. When the reactor overheats, the blue light goes off, the red light comes on. This import bus is set to pull out the used up condensators. It's only set to use this. I've got them both programmed in here, but I was only using the LZH ones. So it pulls out this condensator being used up. Because the reactor is still overheated, if we go up here, this is an export bus. Now I've used the fuzzy ones at 99% just in case I have some that I'm almost ready to use. And this will pump the LZH back into what will be the empty spots that the used up ones have been pulled out. Once they're back in, the reactor temperature comes down again. You do have to have a couple of fans in there to pull the temperature back down. And once the temperature is under control, the red light goes out, blue light comes on because it's now cool. And as you can see, the blue side is set to import spent fuel rods. So default operation when it's cool enough, I did that as a test, but then I've only been using quads since then. So it'll import any depleted uranium or depleted MOX fuel. And likewise, the fuzzy export bus, same deal. MOX first and then uranium. So it'll try to put the MOX fuel in first and then use up the other uranium. And again, 99% fuzzy comparison, just in case I have some that I've used a little bit and I want to put back in there. I could potentially take that down actually because I do want it to use any old fuel. And that's pretty much that part of the reactor. So as you can see, I've got my ME, my EU cable, and my rednet all going down through the floor. If we head over here, where I've got one of these lovely elevators, and go down. Now, this is underneath the reactor. As you can see, again, I've kept the double thickness of the reinforced glass, and all three cables just sort of have an S-bend to come down. And this complicated looking setup down here does quite a few things with quite a few different colors. So all being used through this rednet controller. Also the screen here just showing me you know, how much is remaining, what the max heat is, current temperature, and all that sort of stuff. So how to explain this very quickly? Well, this thing here is a range trigger. So this is, as you can see in here, we have a location card for this particular MFSU, and as you can see, it is not taking charge at the moment. I'm using all my power at the moment. So this is set to 39.5 mil and 39 mil, and what that means is this will be giving out a signal all the way up until 39.5 million, in which case it will stop giving a signal, and then when that MFSU drops below 39 million, it'll re-trigger the signal. So I've had to click this little graphic here to change it. The default mode, I think, is the other way around, so I've clicked it once to have the high sides on each side. The other side of this is a remote thermal monitor. This thing does need a bit of EU to run, so I've got a dedicated bat box there. It only uses 1 EU per tick, but I'm afraid of this running out. So this thing is set to the reactor. I've just left it at the default of 500. There's the sensor location card for the reactor, the range upgrade because it's too far down. And again, I've changed this from the default mode. I think the default mode emits a redstone when it's under. This one emits a redstone when it's over. I think if this remote thermal monitor ever died for any reason, I'd probably be in trouble. So I may yet find a way of doing it the other way around, because that means if this runs out of power, I'm still not in trouble from a meltdown. I've got enough power though, so I'm not overly concerned about that. This switch here, again, these are just sort of manual switches for testing, so I don't really use this one. This was just when I was testing the range trigger. This switch here is plugged into the same cable, but you'll notice it's yellow versus white, and I have made this basically my on-off switch for the reactor. So if I turn that off, you can see now the reactor's off, output is 0, everything's halted. Turn it on, everything's back on again. Now the tricky bit, the rednet controller. Now I'm using almost all of the pages of this. So what this one says is I've got a couple of pass-throughs. So pass-through, white from the right-hand side goes to red through the top. Now you might remember from up the top, red meant overheat. White on the right-hand side comes from the thermal monitor. So that literally says if the thermal monitor says it's hot, make sure that red signal gets passed up to that red light, which will also trigger the LZH stuff, and that means it's too hot. Next one, we've got an inverter. So this again is the same thing. The white from the right, which is our temperature thing, the opposite will be sent to blue. So if this is on, meaning it's too hot, it'll turn the blue off, and at the moment, because it's cool enough, this is off, which means the blue is on. And that is as simple as it gets for the temperature. Now the next one, we're also storing our temperature into a variable because we want to use it later on. So I've got an inverter for that, which means at the moment it's cool, which means that's off. So variable 1 is set to on. Now this is the one that actually turns the reactor on. So you remember the variable we just set means it's cool enough. So variable 1 means it's cool enough. Now the left hand side white, which you might remember was our range trigger, that's giving out a signal meaning the MFSU is empty or needs to be charged. And then also that yellow on the right, which was my on-off switch. If all of these things are on, then we send the white signal out the top, and that is turn the reactor on. That makes it run, but it'll only run the reactor if it's cool enough, if the MFSU has room for charge, and if I've turned the on switch on. So this is the bit that will turn the reactor off if it gets too hot. So as soon as it gets too hot, that thing will turn off, won't turn the reactor on. Again, if the MFSU gets full, it stops everything from working, and if I turn the switch off, it stops everything from working. So this is my main safety sort of logic gate. The other two, I don't think we need to worry about these yet. This is if the reactor is on, then this orange one is off, and not for the other one. Now orange I'm using for something else. I'm using orange over here with this EU splitter cable. It essentially means if I turn the reactor off, that cuts that cable. And the reason that I do that is at the end of this cable, which disappears into the floor, it comes over here to a mass fabricator. And because it uses quite a bit of power, you can see it running there, generating me some UU matter liquid. I don't want that running when the reactor is off because the rest of my base's power cannot support it. So that's just my safe way of making sure that that is turned off whenever the reactor is not running. So I think that's probably it just for the quick tour of the reactor. I'll go into some of the processes in the next video, I think, around creating the fuel, getting the fuel in there. You really need the full hazmat suit this time around, but I'll go into that next time. Hopefully this time it's given you enough to get started, even on a more basic reactor. The key thing with this is if you're making a reactor that doesn't use condensators, which is essentially what this one is at the moment, you've just got to make sure every single spot is used up. So I've just got these containment reactor plates in there to use up the spots, which means that when one of these uses up, it'll pull the old one out, and it's only got that one spot to put the fresh fuel in. And that seems to be about it for this one. Alright, I'm Stu42. I will see you next time with a bit more detail on processing of the fuel and all that sort of stuff. Until next time, see ya.